Welcome to the Blue Cafe. Merry Christmas to you all. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, on to more holiday stories. Christmas kinda sucks. Rant. Trying to be consistent and as close to North Carolina as possible, minimum details and single-word responses whenever I can, but having kids involved makes it difficult to go completely no contact. Been doing better this past month or so, with a new counselor, despite the dreaded holiday season looming. Since my ex controls all access between myself and our kids, to a degree I have to toe the line and meet her standards in order to speak with them. Every single email chain between myself and the ex has to include details of her and her new husband, the AP. If I end a particular email response with "God bless the kids" or "Merry Christmas to the kids," she responds with "What about me and AP? You have to include me and AP." Quite frankly, my dear, I don't have to include either of you. May both you and your AP/new hubby have your genitalia rot off, and both of you will burn in that special hell reserved for adulterers and parental alienators for all eternity. I won't lose any sleep about it. I probably will lose some sleep in the short term as I continue to heal, but only the short term, and at some point I will no longer. So with that off my chest, I would like to wish my fellow survivors as merry a Christmas as you can handle or manage. Whether you have access or visitation with your kids or not, I hope you are able to find some joy today with them. I do hope you find something to hold on to that is positive and keeps you moving forward. You are not alone. Caught my wife cheating on Christmas Eve, conflicted. My wife, 52F, and I, 52M, have had a very rough 2021. We were living in separate houses for 6 months from March to September. My expectation was that we would be getting divorced eventually. We kept communicating by phone and saw each other at times. As the year wore on, things got warmer between us and eventually she convinced me that we needed to be together again. I moved back to the house in September and we began working on rebuilding our relationship. Many times in the last few months I have felt extremely positive and happy about the future. When I had first come back, she told me that while I was gone she had fallen in love with another man, but that they never did anything physical, and that it was over. I forgave her for that because I wanted to move on. I myself never had any relationship with anyone else since we got married. 24 years. I have become frustrated with her because she spends a lot of time away from the house and away from me. She doesn't have a job and yet she averages 8 to 10 hours a day almost every day out gallivanting. During this time she won't answer her cell phone or respond to text and often comes back between 9 to 11:30 p.m. I've become upset and tell her how much she hurts me with this behavior, and that I needed her 100% effort, but she tells me that I'm being paranoid and that she's just hanging out with her friends. This really started to drive me crazy, and last night I followed her when she took off in a very hurried fashion, telling my 18-year-old daughter that she would only be gone for 10 minutes. She parked her car in the driveway of a house that I didn't know, so I decided to sneak up near the house and see if I could find anything out. When she came out of the house I heard her very clearly say the words "I love you, my darling" to a man on the porch. I confronted her and she explained that she had just been trying to slowly break it off and that she still cared about him, but nothing physical had happened. So in her mind she was making the right choice, but she had been torturing me for the last 3 months by lying, being aloof and unresponsive to my calls. Now our Christmas is shattered. I'm almost feeling guilty because I want to believe she was actually making the right choice and we were going to have happily ever after, but I don't think I can believe anything she says. I just have this feeling that I can never trust her again because she was very skilled in making me feel bad about doubting her while she was actually guilty of at least lying. I feel a huge loss because I think if I didn't follow her maybe everything would have turned out great in the end. Now I am just feeling heartbroken and conflicted as we sit in separate rooms in the same house. To make things even more complicated, we had begun looking at houses. We had wanted to move for a long time. We found a great place that would be a future dream home, and we are currently in escrow on this house. I am pretty sure I will be backing out of that commitment because I am not confident in her. I feel so horrible because I sort of believe her story, but I just can't be a doormat anymore. What should I do? My GF, 28F, and my best friend, 30M, confessed their love for each other. Now I'm, 29M, alone on Christmas while they're spending time together. 2 weeks ago I came back from a work trip. I was gone for 3 weeks and she didn't even get off the floor to welcome me back. We've been having fights about me feeling like she hasn't been as affectionate as I would like, and how she feels like she can't express herself and be the free spirit she wants to be. We flirted with the idea of messing around with others but never committed. I've always been in a traditional relationship, but with her I have been opening my mind to experimenting with others. I just have insecurities and it's been taking time to try to get over them. It all came to a head when I got back from my trip and told her it made me sad that she didn't even seem to miss me. We ended up fighting and talking about breaking up again. Every fight we have usually ended up with her asking, why do we keep doing this, we should just break up. After things calmed down and I tried to tell her I want to be with her, she agreed and asked how I would feel about opening the relationship to date others. I didn't really know, and eventually after some discussion and questioning from me, she confessed to having some feelings for my best friend. That threw me through a loop, but I could sense they felt some type of way. The way she talked about him, things she's said. I had a feeling. I shouldn't have, but I ended up asking him how he felt about her. Told him to just be real. He confessed the same. Said he didn't want to hurt me or make it seem like he wanted to steal her. He was planning on not saying anything and just getting over it. But now that we talked about it, maybe we could do a polyamory thing and all be partners. He doesn't want to hurt anyone. I don't know why, but I ended up telling her how he felt. They talked and told each other they loved each other, and that they could see all of us together as long as it was what I wanted, and I would have to be the one to decide when to have that conversation. I spoke with her the next night and I didn't have an answer. How could I? We just went from flirting with swinging, to talking about opening the relationship, to now wanting to start a relationship with my best friend, while also knowing we haven't resolved these issues with our own relationship. It's intriguing, and I could see it working out, but we would need to work on our relationship before anything. So we mutually decided to break up while we figured out what we truly wanted. She told him she was stepping back from everyone and soul-searching herself. He's been talking to her every day. They're best friends. She's staying at an Airbnb with a family member while she's moving out, and he's gone to visit them almost every day. He asked me for my blessing if he pursued her because he's truly in love. Like an idiot I gave it to him. It's not up to me what he does, it's his life, and who am I to stop someone's happiness? But it fucking hurts and I don't know if I can be around to see him and her together. The two of us went to a party and he was on his phone all night texting her. It made me sick to even look at him. This morning he left to go spend Christmas with her and her family, so I ended up going to another friend's house just to not be alone. They came by to exchange whatever gifts her and I got for each other and they left together again. He told me he'd be back later. I feel betrayed. If you're really taking a step away from everyone, then why are you seeing him every day, talking to him all day? If you're my best friend, why are you choosing to spend all your time with her knowing that we've been having issues and I'm hurting and would like the support of my closest thing to family? So here I am. Alone. Because I opened up this can of worms and can't close it again. I feel like I just lost both of them to each other. Duck relationships. Duck the holidays. Thanks for reading. TLDR, GF and best friend love each other. Not sure if I want polyamory. We broke up, they're spending time together away from me. FML. Worst Christmas ever. Rant. I am a 34-year-old disabled/autistic female who lives with my parents. I don't have friends, so my parents are the only people I spend time with. My parents seemed to get along really well. They very rarely fought, and we would always do things together like going out to eat and going on vacations. My mom was like my best friend. So Christmas Eve my mom said she was going to her sister's house. I didn't think much of it, but an hour later she pocket dialed me and I could hear her having sex with a guy. It was absolutely horrific. My dad waited for her to get home and they had a huge fight. Apparently she was having an affair with a 22-year-old guy that she works with. She told my dad that she was leaving him for the other guy and that she never loved me or my dad. I feel like I'm living in a nightmare. This isn't the mother I know. Christmas has always been my favorite holiday, but instead of opening presents and enjoying a nice meal with my family, I spent the day in my room crying while my parents argued all day. Eventually my mom announced she was leaving to move in with the other guy. What a horrible Christmas, crying face. Never too old to learn something new. Rant. Wife and I married for almost 50 years, together a few longer. When we had been married a few years, together 7, a strange woman knocked on my door a few days before Christmas to tell me that her husband and my wife were ducking. I suspected she thought maybe we should return the favor, but it wasn't the first thing I thought of 5 minutes from finding out. All the usual drama ensued when wife got home from work, but we got through it, stayed married, and I eventually forgave her. Made harder because strategies like no contact and full disclosure were not in common usage at the time, but she did claim that they'd only had sex a couple of times and his wife had caught them almost immediately. Thus, the visit. But forgiving and forgetting are not exactly the same thing, and sometimes I got a little sad around Christmas. But eventually even that passed, until my wife decided a few years ago that she'd had enough of that messy sex stuff, and we entered the dreaded dead bedroom. So, a few days ago, I was confronting my first "there will absolutely not be any sex" Christmas, and wife asked what was wrong. When pressed, I reminded her we had some bad history around Christmas time and the DB had just kind of amplified it. That's when she said, "Why Christmas? It started at Thanksgiving." I feel nothing for my ex-wife of 6 years. And it's a red flag for people I date. Advice: dated for 3 and married for 3. Found out that she has been cheating on me for about 2 or even 3 years. I am not an emotional person, so when I found out, I immediately separated from her and am currently going through the process of divorce. It's peaceful and I don't want it to be nasty. We both agree that we should separate. Only issue is I really don't care about it. Or her. I have easily moved on over the last couple months and have started to work out and go on dates. It's come up though on a date, I didn't bring it up but it just came up, that I am separated and don't care about her. I got things like, "After 6 years, aren't you a little heartbroken?" and I feel like my rapid recovery is actually a red flag. I responded with, "I refuse to get cheated on, I have self-respect and I deserve better, so it's easy for me to remove her and move on." Is it really that odd for someone to move on after only 2 months? I feel like I was able to move on after the first couple hours of finding out about the affair. My M/33 wife, F/30, of 10 years told me over Christmas break that she wants to open our relationship to her personal friends. Skip to the end for TL, drive. Some background: wife and I have been married since 2015. We dated for 3 years prior to that, got married and moved in together around the time I graduated college and started my new job, IT service work for a large company. We made good money, but the long hours caused some issues. There were arguments but never fights, and I was confident that we managed to pull through. My wife was also going to MA school at the time, so her thought process was that she felt too dependent on me and was worried that she couldn't talk to me openly because I ran all the money, and she was scared she might upset me and I'd throw her out or something, owing to something similar that happened with her parents when she was young. Suffice it to say, I've never so much as raised my voice to her, much less a hand, and so I was really confused why she would feel threatened. I thought maybe I was doing something ducked up or at least something that could be read that way, but she kept telling me it wasn't me, it was her. I didn't believe her, but I would let it go, only for it to come up again a few days later, and eventually she told me about how her parents were drug addicts and basically pawned her off on her grandmother for the first decade or so of her life, at which point she was passed back to her parents again once they were clean, and the whole thing left her with some serious abandonment issues. Things started looking up once she started her MA job and started bringing in money comparable to what I was making, and I really did feel like we started opening up to each other a bit more and talking about our issues. Things were good for a few years, she stopped acting afraid of me all the time and we made some genuinely good memories. Fast forward to 2020, pandemic hits, I have to take a new job 2 states over, we live in the US, that I am slated to start in 2021. This is hard for both of us, me because I've lived in this town my whole life, her because her entire family and all of her friends live back here. Also she can't drive for medical reasons, so she's pretty much high on drive if something happens to me and she has an emergency. The new place is a 3.5-hour drive from our old town, and frankly there's just a ton of adjustments that need to be made. For one, she doesn't have a job over here, and really can't do any work that isn't remote due to not having a car of her own. Before, we both worked across the street from each other, at an office 5 minutes from the house, so driving wasn't an issue. 2021 happens, we move to the new state, and the old issues almost immediately start happening again. She is often cold, distant and very Stepford Smiler in general. She always seems bothered or afraid of something but won't say why, and when I ask she acts all bubbly and insists everything is fine, only for it to come up later and it turns out she was mad, upset, worried about it. I suspect the reasons from before, and she just says she's tired, or stressed, or just overwhelmed, and not to overthink it. For months this continues, she pretty much stops talking to me altogether, and sex is almost non-existent. I try to start conversation, or ask if everything is okay, if she needs anything, etc., and she just shrugs or outright ignores me while scrolling on social media on her phone, and acts like she just didn't hear me. Every now and then we share a meme or a story, or watch a movie together, but things are pretty stagnant. Any attempt at conversation, stonewalled. When we had to evacuate for the hurricane, we didn't have sex for a month after we got back, and only once because she suddenly said she got a horny spell. She blamed the stress. I believed her, as this has happened before. Then, about a month ago, she got into this game called Vampire: The Masquerade, which is played on a Discord server and, from what little research I've done on it, seems to be largely RP, text chat focused. Ever since then, she's been completely glued to the screen, doesn't even look at me when I talk, and is literally on this thing so often she's sleeping maybe 2 to 3 hours a night, 4 to 5 days a week, just on this server. She plays D&D on weekends, so she holds up in the room I normally use as my work from home office, and so that was nothing new. But now she's in there almost 24/7 with the door shut, sometimes locked. Now at this point I didn't actually suspect anything yet, but some signs were starting to add up. For one, she was talking to me again, but only about the game. Her character is part of a polycule, a word I learned from this experience, and this one guy in particular from her polycule, she seemed to have a billion stories about, most involving vaguely sexual situations that ended in little comic mishaps. Then, all of a sudden, one day she decides she wants to dye her hair to look like her character from the game, and she's suddenly asking to order a bunch of kind of sexually suggestive, but not too racy, like elegantly sexy, gowns, ballroom dresses type stuff, again saying it was for the character. Being dumb and trusting, I legitimately thought nothing of it and said cool, and we ordered some of them, and got her hair done. I was actually really happy for her because this was the first time I'd really seen her acting relaxed and enjoying herself. She has always had trouble making friends, so I thought maybe she's finally found her calling. I wanted to support her as much as I could because she usually drops stuff if she has the slightest inkling that I'm not enthusiastic about it, and I didn't want her to think I wanted her to quit or had a problem with it, so I went along with it. Then, one day, she suddenly decides she's going on keto diet. This one is the one that pricks my ears up, because she's always had body image issues before. Every year when her old Facebook memories come up, she gets depressed because she says she's gaining weight. She's tried diets before, and I've offered to cook for her and help support her, but she always gets bored and quits after a week or so. Well, this time, no such thing. She is 100% on it, motivated, cooking every day, going for walks every day. I'm proud of her because I've never seen her this motivated, but deep down I am starting to get a little anxious. I've been cheated on before, and I recognize this feeling, but I hesitate to say anything because I don't actually have any proof, and I want to believe it's just that old wood opening up again. So I hold off. Then, one day a couple weeks ago, I bring up the game. I don't mind her playing and I support her having hobbies and friends, but she is literally on this game 24/7. I haven't seen her so much as go to the bathroom without her phone in hand and eyes on screen, in weeks. She hasn't been to bed with me, to sleep even, in almost 2 weeks. She sleeps 3 hours a night tops. She completely ignores me all day and I have to tap her on the shoulder to get her attention. She's started acting like she's afraid of me again, stopped telling me even stories about her game, and just generally seems to be avoiding me. I try to talk about it several times and she says she feels trapped with me, she feels like she can't talk to me. I'm utterly confused, and being fairly inexperienced with relationships outside of this one, I assume I must be doing some stereotypical abusive controlling boyfriend behavior that's making her feel that way, that I'm not noticing. I mean, I am not trying to be controlling at all, I'm trying to give her freedom and financial security and friends she can talk to and a lifeline to her family if need be. So hearing this again after all the progress I thought we'd made just hurt. But I took it to heart and resolved to work on it. One night, we have a decently big fight because she's started having sex with me again, but otherwise totally ignoring me for the game. I tell her I am interested but I feel like I'm being used, like she ignores me until she needs a sex toy and then uses me, and then treats me like I'm not there. After the fight I pull her aside and I express to her that I wish we could at least just have one day a week to spend together, and just talk, or hang out. I work a lot of strange hours, see, and there have been several days where I am only home during the few hours she's asleep, or when she's got some big event going on in game. She gets very defensive but ultimately settles on the idea. Then she says something that night that sticks with me in a way that makes everything else make sense. There are actually some things I wanted to tell you about, but I don't know how, and I'm scared you will get mad. All of a sudden, things click into place, one after another. I look her in the eye and I say, I actually think I might have an idea of where this is going. She immediately tenses up and says, I don't want to talk about it right now. I nod and say, okay, already starting to feel bad about basically accusing her, but the way her face turns red gives me a bad vibe I can't shake. I'll be here when you have time to talk, I settle on, and go back to the bedroom to get ready for bed. She comes back in a rage, accusing me of starting something with her, and we have a big fight about the game and how long she's been on. I try to stick to the topic, I go out of my way to avoid insinuating or accusing her of cheating, because at this point, I'm just dreading hearing her say it. But I do ask pointed questions. At one point I ask, what is he, the player she tells all the stories about, to you? And her reply is a long pause, followed by, I have started to develop feelings for him. I ask what she means and she struggles to explain, saying he's like a friend, but more, and they talk about all kinds of things, so it's not just one thing, but some topics might be kind of weird and she's not sure how I would feel if she told me, etc. I ask her, has anything else happened? She hesitates, looking me in the eye, and says yes. I say, what else? She says pics. What kind of pics? Chest and genital region pics. How long has this been going on? Turns out, almost since the game started. The reason she wanted the hair change and costume is because she's been doing sexual roleplay with this guy, and she wanted to be the character for him. She's never offered to do anything like this for me, so this came as a shock. I've always known her as uncomfortable with sex in general, very shy and depressive and with a low sex drive. She wanted to lose weight because he said she had too much of a belly, and she wanted to get sexy for him. We had a long fight about it. My old issues came up. Long story short, a bunch of her friends in the game in their little polycule are actually in a real polyamorous relationship, and have been talking to her about proposing one to me for some time, giving her tips on how to prep me for it and make me more likely to say yes. And now she's decided that this is who she is, this is what she wants, and if I don't accept it, then this relationship isn't going to work. Naturally, I lose my cool and demand to know where this is coming from, and she says it's been this way for years but she was too afraid to tell me. I've been trying to open up to her, get her to talk about stuff with me, help her with her troubles, deal with her issues, etc. Since we moved, and I've been getting stonewalled. I've been nothing but kind to her, I've never once threatened her in any way, and I just don't understand. So why did she wait until now to tell me? Because I thought I could make it work. I'm heartbroken. My relationship is basically over. I've been with this woman 10 years, and it's like all the affection I thought she had for me is gone overnight. I don't know where else to turn. I am willing to hear any and all advice and criticisms. If I'm showing any red flags or signs, then please tell me. Just please, I need to know if there's anything I could have done to prevent this. TL Doctor equals wife has issues confiding in me throughout 10-year relationship, despite my continued efforts to reach out and console and provide for her at every chance, including giving her space when she asks for it. We moved to new state for new job. Wife has an affair with a polyamorous guy from Discord gaming server. Says I have to join her polycule or it's over. Maybe you can see something I couldn't. We hope you have enjoyed this special episode. Please comment, like and subscribe. Cheers. Happy holidays and to all a good night. Or day, wherever you are.